Hello everyone, my name is Vishal Gupta and you're watching World History Lecture Series for UPSC CSE History option. So today we are going to discuss French Revolution. French Revolution is one of the most significant events of world history which shook the whole foundation of Europe and paved the way for its reconstruction. And its effects were not just limited to Europe, but its effects could be seen in Asia, in Africa, and in Americas. And its effects were not just limited to the 18th century. It continued to impact the world even into the 19th as well as into the 20th century. Another feature of the revolution was that it was a war of ideas as much as it was a war of bayonets. Yes, military struggle was there. Yes, use of force was there. But beyond that, it was a war of ideas. It was a contest of ideas. On the one side, we had ideas like equality, nationality, democracy, liberty, fraternity. And on the other side, we had ideas like feudalism, aristocracy, privileges, etc. So now we see what was the condition of France on the eve of the French Revolution. France, I'm sorry, we'll see the condition of Europe on the eve of the French Revolution. Europe on the eve of the French Revolution was both politically as well as socially weak. It was politically weak because absolutism was the order of the day. Serfdom prevailed everywhere in Europe. And not only were the rulers absolute, but they were thoroughly dishonest and unprincipled in their dealings with each other. And besides the low tone of international morality, the political organization of most of the European states was weak and inefficient. So, for example, Germany was an assemblage of 360 sovereign states. Uh, its imperial organization was completely weak. The emperor had no authority. The imperial diet was powerless. The Holy Roman Empire had long ceased to be either Holy or Roman or Empire. And the two major powers of Germany, Austria and Prussia, were always involved in bitter rivalry. Austria itself was a jumble of multiple races and languages. So, for example, there were Bohemians, there were Hungarians, Milanese, Netherlanders, and Austrian proper. And on all these multiple races, the central authority of Austria tried to impose the German culture, which was obviously resented by these multiple races. Russia at that time was being ruled by Catherine II, and under Catherine II, Russia was busy in territorial aggrandizement, primarily in Poland and Turkey. Italy was merely a geographical expression. It was a collection of many petty states with no bond of unity among them. England, which was supposedly the most powerful kingdom at that time, had also suffered a great loss in the American Revolution. So it was also going through a weak phase. Europe was also socially weak because feudalism and serfdom prevailed everywhere, and inequality was acute in Europe. The privileged orders enjoyed total or partial exemption from taxation, while all the burden was shifted to the lower orders. So now we see what was the condition of France on the eve of the French Revolution. Condition of France was not much different from Europe. It was also under an absolutist rule. Uh, the monarchy was highly centralized, um, and because of that centralized monarchy, it required a ruler of exceptional ability to control the situation. So until Louis XIV was alive, things were more or less in control because Louis XIV was a capable ruler. But Louis XV was weak and frivolous, and after he acceded to the throne, things started becoming deteriorated. Inequality was acute in France as well. Society consisted of three states: the nobility, the clergy, and the third estate, which comprised of the bourgeoisie, the artisans, and the peasants. Uh, the third estate bore the whole burden of taxation, and then were excluded from all positions of authority, while the nobility and clergy enjoyed total or partial exemption from the burden of taxation. And before the actual physical revolution took place in France, there was an intellectual revolt already going on in France. And the primary flag bearers of this intellectual revolt were Montesquieu, Voltaire, and Rousseau. Montesquieu was an ardent advocate of constitutional monarchy and spoke highly of the English system of government. Voltaire advocated the supremacy of reason and directed his attack especially against the bigotry and intolerance of the church. Rousseau came up with a plan of social reconstruction. He gave the concept of social contract, which had the seeds of democracy and socialism in it. And the financial condition of France was also very bad at that time. It was undergoing a chronic fiscal deficit uh, due to the wars of Louis XIV and the court extravaganza of Louis XV. And the finances of France deteriorated even further when France got involved itself in the American Revolution. So now, a very important question that we so a very important question that we must all ask is that when feudalism with its class privileges and paralyzing restrictions prevailed everywhere on the continent, and when absolutism was the order of the day everywhere in Europe, then how is it that the revolution broke out in France and not anywhere else in Europe? The answer to this question can be given in 2 points. The first being that in France, the feudal privileges had outlived the duties. The reason why in rest of the Europe people tolerated the feudal barons was that they performed certain important duties, and in return for those duties they were given those privileges. But in France, all the powers were centralized in the monarchy, and the feudal barons were left with no significant duties. However, their privileges remained intact, and those were not taken away. So this anomaly was slightly exasperating for the French people. And the second reason that we can state for this question is that there was a presence of an enlightened middle class in France, which was found nowhere else in Europe. This enlightened middle class always engaged in debate, they discussed new ideas, and when the revolution actually broke out, they provided leadership to the revolution, at least in the initial phase. Now, the next question that we must ask here is that who were the makers of the revolution? Was it the bourgeoisie or was it the peasants? Uh, we can say that at least in the early stage, it was the bourgeoisie that provided the leadership to the revolution, and they were the ones who organized the revolution. But in the later stage, the peasants had taken over. Uh, Now we'll see a simple comparison between the French Revolution and the English Revolution. The English Revolution was primarily a political movement, while the French Revolution was social in the first instance and political in the second. Uh, in the aims of the English Revolution, the Puritan Revolution of 1641 and the Glorious Revolution of 1688, were in the main political. They were directed against the illegal exercise of the royal prerogative. Uh, so when the people were satisfied when the rights and privileges were safeguarded by constitutional checks imposed upon the royal power. The motive of the French Revolution, on the other hand, was social in the first instance. Uh, and when Napoleon secured social equality, the people did not grudge when he trampled upon liberty. The English Revolution was conservative, while the French Revolution was radical and destructive. Uh, Thus, there was no Bill of Rights. In England, the ancient laws were re-established after the revolution, while in France, the people sought to abolish the old regime root and branch and to bring about a new order of things. So they aimed at wholesome reconstruction and not just partial changes. So now we'll see the events leading to the formation of the National Assembly. Formation of the National Assembly was a major landmark, major milestone in the process of the revolution. So, as we saw earlier, that after Louis XIV, Louis XV acceded to the throne, and after Louis XV died, Louis XVI succeeded him. Louis XVI was a very honest, well-intentioned person and had genuine desire to serve his people. Uh, so he genuinely wanted to do good for France, bring in reforms. And in this process, to bring in financial reforms, he appointed two very uh, competent finance ministers successively in the form of Turgot and Necker. But both of these finance ministers had to go out of their offices because the reforms that they suggested had provisions of taxing the upper two orders, and obviously the nobility and the clergy resisted it, and under pressure they both had to go out of their offices. When these things happened, when the two popular ministers, Turgot and Necker, had to resign from their offices, the people obviously became uh, very resentful. So they demanded summoning of the States General. A States General is a form of parliament for France at that time, and it had been defunct for a very long time. So people demanded summoning of the States General. Initially, the king refused, tried to ignore the demand, but finally, under pressure of the people, he had to summon the States General. Now, the composition of the States General was such that it was a three-chambered body composed of the elected representative of the three orders: the nobility, the clergy, and the commoners. And the three chambers sat separately and also voted separately. So the third estate, which consisted of the commoners, was always in a perpetual minority because the other two orders had similar interests and they always voted together. So this time the third estate demanded that voting should take place with all the three orders in a single chamber and each individual should have a single vote. This the clergy and the nobility were not willing to accept and they resisted. So because of this resistance, the third estate declared themselves as the National Assembly and declared that they alone had the right to decide for the whole nation. Uh, the king opposed the National Assembly, and when the session of the National Assembly was going to take place in the States General Hall, the king closed the hall in order to prevent the session. The members, in anger, rushed to a neighboring tennis court, and all assembled took an oath to separate, not to separate till the constitution of the realm had definitely established. So it was a momentous decision. Um, so initially, the king tried to suppress the National Assembly, but when he saw that the resolution of the commoners was firm, he ordered the clergy and the nobility to join the third estate. And thus, the three orders formed a single chamber, and the formation of the National Assembly was completed. But even after that, the king sought to suppress the National Assembly. Uh, and the result of this was that it culminated into the fall of Bastille on 14 July 1789. Bastille was the state prison, which was regarded by the people as the symbol of tyranny and abuses of the old regime. After the fall of Bastille, a municipal government was established in Paris, and a city militia called the National Guard was organized to maintain order. Uh, and when people in the other provinces saw these things happening in Paris, they also formed their own municipal governments and organized provincial national guards. The feudal lords looked at these things happening everywhere in the country, and they were obviously intimidated. So on a session of National Assembly on 4th of August 1789, the nobles voluntarily surrendered their feudal rights and privileges. Thus, the overthrow of the old regime was completed. Uh, Another significant event happened after this was on 5th October, when a large number of women set out for Versailles to fetch the king and brought him to Paris. So now the National Assembly set out on the task of framing the new constitution. The new constitution had the famous Declaration of Rights, which proclaimed that all men are free and equal in rights, and that sovereignty resides in the people. Uh, the the country was to be governed by a king and a parliament known as the Legislative Assembly. The king was to be the head of the executive and was to choose his own ministers who were not to sit in the legislature. Thus, the executive and the legislature were rigidly separated. Um, the legislature was to consist of 745 members who were to be elected uh, for 2 years by a system of indirect representation. Uh, Requirements of property qualification excluded a large number of citizens from voting. Uh, Under the judicial system, torture and letters de cachet were abolished. Uh, the entire country was divided into 83 departments. Each department was subdivided into districts, cantons, and communes. The affairs of every department were to be managed by an elected council. The assembly also took certain financial measures, for example, the nationalization of church property. That was the only way to bring the country out of that fiscal deficit. Uh, the assembly also did some reorganization of the church. It abolished the teats and brought in the civil constitution of clergy, uh, under which the clergy was to be elected. The constitution had certain defects. It had a weak executive. The powers of the king was checked by formation of the legislative assembly. Uh, there was a sharp separation between executive and the legislature, and there was no means to establish communication between the ministers of the king and the representatives of the people. Uh, the franchisee was highly limited, and it was in direct violation of the principles enshrined in the Declaration of Rights. Uh, the civil constitution of clergy was one of the most disastrous feature of the constitution. It produced a schism in the church and divided the people of France in their attitude towards the revolution. A large number of lower clergy who had greatly favored the revolution so far now turned against it after this civil constitution of clergy was brought in. Uh, it also estranged the king who had accepted the revolution. The religious fiber in his nature was very strong, and the denunciation of the civil constitution by the Pope made him very uneasy. The new constitution had deprived the king of all his powers, so he planned to escape with his family from Paris, uh, but was discovered in the attempt and was brought back to Paris. It shook the loyalty of the people, and the Republicans demanded the abolition of the office of the king. However, for the time being, the constitutional monarchists were able to prevail over the Republicans, and the king was restored to his position. So now we will see the functioning of the Legislative Assembly. Uh, a number of political clubs had risen in the Legislative Assembly, namely the Jacobins, the Cordeliers, and the Girondists. And there was bitter rivalry among these political clubs. Among the measures taken by the Legislative Assembly, they passed a decree requiring all the priests to abide by the civil constitution of the clergy, and the non-juring clergy, that is, those who refused to accept the civil constitution, were to be deprived of their pensions and were to be regarded as suspicious characters liable to be removed from their districts in case of any disturbance. And secondly, it passed a decree requiring the emigres to return to France by a fixed date. The emigres were those who had emigrated from France and were trying to influence the foreign powers to suppress the revolution. Uh, the king vetoed the two decrees, and as a result of this, mob violence began in Paris and other provinces as well. France was now on the verge of a war with rest of the Europe. The causes of this war were fear of the spread of the revolutionary principles. The monarchs in the other countries of Europe obviously feared that the revolutionary principles would spread into their own kingdoms, and this would endanger the law and order there and also their right to rule. Uh, German princes had a number of rights and possessions in France, which they felt threatened by the revolution. Um, Another personal reason for the Austrian king to intervene was that the Queen of France was the sister of Austrian king. So he was spearheading the coalition that was being formed against the French revolutionaries. Uh, The Austrian king gave a declaration of Pillnitz, under which he invited all the monarchs of Europe to undertake an armed intervention in France. Uh, when the revolutionaries saw this, they compelled Louis XVI to declare war on Austria. In the short term, the French failed badly, and they suffered many losses. And the blame for all these losses was put on the king. Uh, the Legislative Assembly, as a result, voted for the suspension of the king and ordered for the election of a national convention to consider the basis of a new constitution. Thereafter, a large number of assassinations of royalists, those who supported monarchy in France, took place. These assassinations were known as September massacres. And after that, in the long run, the French started achieving certain successes against the rest of the Europe. So now, so as we discussed earlier, that a national convention was to be formed to frame a new constitution. The National Convention functioned between 1792 to 1795, and its first act was to abolish the monarchy and declare France republic. Uh, the primary work of the convention to frame a constitution was long postponed because it was distracted by the quarrel that broke out between the Jacobins and the Girondists. Eventually, the Jacobins were able to prevail on the Girondists, and they decided to execute the king, Louis XVI. Uh, they conducted a mock trial, and Louis XVI was declared guilty of high treason to the state and of conspiracy against the liberty of the nation. So he was sentenced to death and executed by guillotine on January 21, 1793. Execution of Louis XVI was a blunder, both a crime and a blunder. He was the most unselfish and the best intentioned of the French king. He was sincerely desirous of working for his country's good. Uh, and it defeated the very object which it was meant to secure. It did not further the cause of the revolution. On the contrary, it involved the revolution in increasing dangers both at home and abroad. In France, many of the provinces rose in revolt against the republic as the murderer of the king, while abroad, the danger of the coalition of monarchs in the rest of the Europe came up. Next in the series of events was the formation of the first coalition against France. It was formed primarily due to the aggressive attitude of the convention. They proclaimed a war of principles against the monarchical Europe. Uh, They issued propagandist decrees calling upon all the people to rise in revolt against their rulers, and even offered them armed resistance. Uh, and even France itself desired a war because the revolution had dislocated industry and trade in France. And recalling the army at this point of time would have proven disastrous. So even France desired war. Uh, there were also other interests of the Allies which were at stake. Uh, the coalition was formed of England, Holland, Austria, Prussia, Sardinia, and Spain. So Austria was anxious to expel the French from Belgium. Sardinia wanted to save Savoy from the hands of the French, and England wanted to prevent France from re-establishing Antwerp as the rival port of London. England saw her commercial prosperity threatened by the opening of the Scheldt and her security endangered by the French occupation of Belgium. So all the allies had some or the other material interests as well to join the coalition. So now there were dangers both within and outside France. Inside, there was it because of the tyranny and the supremacy of the Commune of Paris. A number of cities had taken up arms against the revolutionary, and abroad there was the danger of the coalition of the European powers. In order to deal with these dangers, the reign of terror was unleashed by the Jacobins. So, what was this reign of terror? What was the machinery of this reign of terror? It consisted of three parts. The first was the law of suspects, which authorized the arrest of any and every person suspected of being attached to the cause of monarchy or unfavorably disposed towards the cause of the republic. The second part of the machinery was the Revolutionary Tribunal. It was an extraordinary criminal court created for the speedy trial of the suspects. Lastly, there was the Square of the Revolution, where the heads of uh, the anti-revolutionaries were cut off under the guillotine. Uh, So, as a result of the reign of terror, dangers both within and outside were averted. France started gaining successes against the first coalition. And when that happened, there was a split in the camp among the revolutionaries. Certain sections of the revolutionaries wanted the reign of terror to end because the its objective had been achieved, well, certain sections were against stopping reign of terror at that point of time. So, uh, as a result, the Herbertist and the Dantonist had to fall against the Jacobins. The Jacobins were able to prevail. Uh, and eventually somehow the national convention was able to uh, outlaw Robespierre and its adherents. Robespierre was the main flag bearer of the reign of terror. So eventually convention was able to outlaw Robespierre and he was also executed. um, so thus came an end to the reign of terror. And finally, the convention completed its task of forming the new constitution in 1795. And under the new constitution, the executive was entrusted to a directory consisting of 5 members. The legislative powers was entrusted to two houses called the Council of 500 and the Council of Ancients. Now, the directory being consisting of 5 members, there was always dissensions in the directory because it created 5 different pillars of power. So they always disagreed on all matters. Also, the aggressive foreign policy of the directory led to the formation of a new coalition against the French, the second coalition of European powers against the French. Uh, in order to deal with this second coalition, the directory was not in a shape to be able to deal with the situation. So, two of the directors, along with Napoleon, who had now arrived on the scene, uh, in a coup, they overthrew the directory, and Napoleon started his journey at the helm of affairs in France. So, in the next lecture, we will see the Napoleonic era. Uh, so, thank you for watching the video and do share, like, and subscribe if you like the video. Thank you.